Hey guys, it's Sean with Hack My Homestead, and today I want to talk about some things you should be thinking about if you're planning to go off grid or you're evaluating what it would look like to go off grid. The first thing you want to do is you want to look at high energy versus low energy use items. So we're talking about efficiency here, and I know that's the E word, and I don't say that a whole lot, but when you're talking about appliances that you're going to use on a regular basis, a light bulb that draws 100 watts versus a light bulb that draws 9 watts and puts out the same lumens, that's a good option for a low energy item that does the same thing as a high energy item. You've heard me tell this story before about how when we first moved off grid, we actually got rid of our drip coffee maker and we started making our coffee by hand grinding it in the morning, boiling our water on a stove, and using a French press. And honestly, that was fantastic coffee. Now, the reality is that there's some other options for making coffee these days that, it's pretty efficient. The actual usage for making an individual cup of coffee or a pot of coffee is not as high as it once was. And one of the things that we had to deal with as a limitation when we first went off grid was we were using a flooded lead acid battery bank. And flooded lead acid, you don't want to draw a ton of current out of those batteries if you can help it. Now that we're on lithium iron phosphate, we don't have that limitation as bad. And so we're actually going to an electronic version of a coffee maker. It's kind of a International Space Station coffee maker, very efficient, but it makes fantastic coffee. And we have a system now that can support that, so that's okay. The next thing you want to think about is heating and cooling, and that's all heating and cooling. Heating and cooling people, heating and cooling food, heating and cooling water. And I know most people don't cool water, but you might like ice, for example. And so that would be a place where you're using energy to cool water. So just thinking about what you actually need. I'm not telling anyone to move off grid without air conditioning. I will say that our first year off grid, we had one of the hottest summers on record in the state that we moved off grid in, and it was brutal. It was tough. We were not ready for it. Our bodies were not acclimated. One of the things that you'll find when you move off grid is that your body actually acclimates with the seasons instead of just having your house at 72 degrees year round, regardless of the outside temperature. So think about how to heat people or how to cool people instead of places. I don't need to cool a 2,000 square foot house if I'm outside working and I want to come inside with a respite from the heat. I can cool my bedroom and just go hang out in my bedroom, journal a little bit, record a video for you guys, and that's a very good use of that energy that's going to be required to cool a small area that I can go into to get out of the heat versus trying to cool the whole house. Same thing with heat. Sweaters are your friend. Other people in your house are your friend. People give off heat. And of course, I love the wood burning stoves. I want a high efficiency one. I don't want to have to be pumping wood in that thing all the time. And we actually surrounded our wood burning stove with river rock. So even when the stove burns out overnight, it's already heated that river rock up, and that river rock can radiate heat back into the house until the next morning when we get up and rekindle the fire. If you're going to go propane, even if you're going to go electric heat, which I don't recommend, there are some options that are very high energy efficient. And if you put your system together and make it large enough to actually supply the heat that you need, if you're going to use electric heat, that's fine. Again, I wouldn't recommend it, but it's not impossible to do. The next thing that you need to think about is, where are my vampire loads? And typically, I put this together with entertainment. Typically, your vampire loads are your Blu-ray player and your TV and your smart devices and all that's plugged in 24/7, just waiting for you to come into the room and turn it on. They don't need to be plugged in 24/7. You can literally plug them in when you need them, use them, and then unplug them or put them on a power switch and turn them off. Those vampire loads will kill you. A microwave, the clock on a microwave over a typical microwave's lifespan will use more energy than actually cooking the food on the inside. So just little things like that, just thinking about, how do I stop wasting energy? As a society, we've got this grid that is a miracle of modern engineering, that we can turn a light on and it works. We can turn a light off and it goes off, and we can turn it back on, and all of our appliances just work when we need them to. Well, you don't absolutely have to have those things in standby mode all the time. When you're living off grid, that waste of the 22 hours a day that your TV is not on so that it can be ready for you to turn it on versus the hour in the morning and the hour in the evening or whatever, you're getting together as a family and watching a movie in the evening. You don't need that. It's all waste. And then the other thing to think about, and this is just a lifestyle choice, but identify ways that you can actually replace new technology with old technology. And here's a couple examples. I love candlelight. I tell people all the time, I'd rather sit and read a book by candlelight than have a light on next to me that's using electricity. I just like the feel of it. I like the fact that I can go a week or two on the same candle that costs me like 78 cents, and it provides enough light, and it's also not really blue, right? It's that nice orange light. So I can read a book before going to bed, blow the candle out, lay down, go right to sleep. I don't have that issue where my melatonin or serotonin or whatever it is. I'm not a doctor. I don't even play one on TV, but I know blue light prevents people from going to sleep, and I don't have that problem if I read a book by candlelight for an hour or two before I decide to go to sleep. The other thing I love to do instead of watching a movie with the family is to sit around a campfire with the family. And it's a primal thing. Your ancestors did this before there was a such thing as a TV. And I think it's enjoyable. Put on some music or share stories or whatever you're going to do. That's something that uses no electricity. Even if you're going to put a little bit of music on your iPhone or something, or let's say you've got some outdoor speakers that you're running, that's a significantly less amount of electricity than everyone getting in the room, turning the air conditioner on and watching a movie together. And I'm not saying don't watch movies. I love movies. I'm a cinephile. But I also know that a lot of times it's just kind of like unplugging my brain. And I'd almost rather unplug my brain by talking to other people than by just sitting in front of a screen. So just think about how you can kind of replace some of those activities with other activities. The other thing that you can think about is we talked about, cooling, we talked about heating, people. When you're talking about food, if you're going to have a campfire, why not throw a grate on that thing and grill some steaks over it? You know what I mean? Or why not put a griddle on the edge of it and heat it up and then grill some burgers on that thing? Or put a griddle on it and leave it overnight, come out the next morning and cook bacon on it. I really enjoy that. I know a lot of people don't, but figuring out ways to prepare your food without using a ton of electricity is another strategy for reducing the amount of solar panels and batteries that you need if you're going to live off grid. So the last thing I'll leave you with is think about insulation and think about air tightness. So if you're building an off-grid home from scratch, you can manage all of that. But if you're buying a property that's already has a structure on it, or you've inherited something, or you've already built something and it was like a shed to house conversion type thing, all of those things are great, but they're typically kind of leaky. And so going through that home with doing the candle test, and you can Google and find out what that is, and trying to see where you've got air leakages is a fantastic idea, because you'll find that you are more comfortable if you can airtight your area than if you super insulate it. Okay, you can super insulate and have a crack, and all that outside humidity is going to end up inside. So think about insulation, think about air tightness, think about those vampire loads, replacement therapy, right? Instead of watching the TV, go sit in front of a fire with your family. Heating and cooling, that's the big one. That's the majority of everyone's energy bill is heating and cooling food, heating and cooling people, heating and cooling water. So, just think about other strategies to do that, and it'll pay off in the long run. Well, guys, if you enjoyed this content, hit the like button, and feel free to subscribe if you want to. I'm going to put tons of this type of content out. So if you enjoyed this, if you made it this far in the video, then you probably enjoyed it enough to hit that subscribe button. Thanks.